number one, thank you guys for being here. Next week, hopefully, we're gonna have a couple more people, and we'll probably have like. We'll have like probably 4 or 5 people minimum in the office next week, so that'll be kind of cool. We have several announcements as far as staff and whatnot. So for everybody watching, we're welcoming back Mike and Charlotte to the team and to management in the office, and filling the needs that have been there for a while. So it's awesome, and with you guys coming back, it's already made huge impact in about 3 or 4 days. So can't stress how awesome that is, and excited. Anything you guys want to share?
Nope, just yeah, we have some properties that need to get leased up. If you can use some help with that, and then if anybody has some handyman type skills, we can put them to work, and they can make money that way too on several of the properties.
Perfect. Cool. So numbers wise, we're wrapping up. So October was the beginning of the 4th quarter, and I think we've had 1 or 2 since then. So we have 108 or 109 right now, and I think we officially have passed the 18.5 million mark. So not too shabby, not too shabby. And between November and December, it's really weird because Arizona's market kind of goes in contrast with most other states. You know, back east when it's starting to get cold and frozen, people don't move. But here, Arizona, the winter time is our most hopping time. Oh man, I really, really wish I could just get the stat newsletter back up, because that was a main point of conversation. Do you recall the last 2 months what we've been talking about with the market and where the numbers were going?
Down. Yeah.
On both what?
Rentals and residential.
In general, our supply went down, our sales went down, but then last month, sales went down, supply went up just a little bit.
Oh.
This month, which is the stat newsletter, which would be for September now, because this is October, was even more. Our supply is down, our sales went down by 15%, which is actually 6% year over year.
Okay.
Sales went down. Our supply has gone up again. So that's 2 months in a row, but this month the numbers are even, silence phones please. This month it's even more drastic, which goes, see, this is, it's exit page again. It's not even loading Gmail now at all.
It might be just the internet, because the internet was
Well, we gotta fix
a little
that.
slow.
Well, we can't have that. We gotta call if that's the case, because it was last week, we couldn't broadcast and it stopped and people had issues. And if we're continuously having issues, we just need to call, because that's bad.
I'll call them and talk to them about this, and then
Maybe I have to increase the broadband or something like that.
I think so.
get some information about reinstalling too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if this is my computer or partial internet. I couldn't tell you. I wish I knew. Okay, so the gist was that whereas we normally average about 8,000 sales a month, last in September we had 6,900 sales.
Oh, wow.
Okay, whereas previously we were averaging close to, the last several months we haven't had enough homes on the market. So what we figured out was actually about 17,000 crept up now to over 17 legitimately, with once you take out the CCBSs and the UCBs. So that means we now have basically 3 months in a row with sales going down, supply coming up.
Get ready to hold on, because it's definitely an unstable market then.
With interest rates coming up,
Yeah.
and what's interesting is what she mentioned too, the fact that this has been an election year is all the more weird that it's actually happening. People have been predicting this for a while, and everybody is saying that it's not, and it shouldn't be. Things aren't as drastic as they were in 2007 and 8 when it came to the reasons people were buying homes, the type of loans people were using when they were buying those homes, and just the overall, what would you call it? People were in lines at new builds, just
Yeah.
putting out lotteries back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, this has just been our supply sucks and our demand is pretty normal. You know, and that's kind of where we've been at. We haven't had 10,000 sales a month. It's 7, 8,000 sales a month. So we live in a world where everyone thinks they know better. And right now, so many of our clients are dealing with bad information, such as interest rates. You know, without anything to compare it to, okay? If I were to come to you right now and all you knew was since 2011, okay? What does a 5% interest rate sound like to you?
Terrible.
Since 1980,
Good.
what's a 5% interest rate?
Good.
Okay? So historically speaking, where are interest rates right now?
At about 4.
Good, bad, average,
They're actually-
better side,
they're actually
worse
very-
side?
They're very good in relation to historical mortgages, but it's terrible compared to recent, like 5 years ago.
Okay. So as an agent communicating this to your clients who probably should buy a house right now, there's nothing, no reason not to, how would you convey that to them when they're thinking that, well, crap, man, this is 5%, this sucks? What would you say to them?
That historically, 5% is very little compared to history, except for our recent history. And unless there's some kind of major event that happens, it's gonna keep creeping up to about the 6, 7%, maybe even 8, and that will stay there for 15 years, which is what has always happened. So buying something now, to lock in a 4.5 or 5% rate is good, because the second thing that they always have the option of doing is if it goes down enough, they could always refinance, if it goes down. But if it goes up, they're locked in with it, depending on their loan.
Absolutely. Okay? So, let's say that you get them past that hurdle. What's the next hurdle you're going to run into as far as dealing with either a buyer or a seller? Pick one. Because they're each going to be in different shoes as the market
There's
flux.
a Karen here for you guys? Karen, I'm not quite sure.
Next door.
Oh, probably for the key.
No.
Okay. All right.
Give it right up.
All right, so let's say they have, we've gotten them past the interest rate part, right? They're like, okay, yeah, we understand, and actually time is of the essence, better to do it now while they're still in the 4s to 5s as opposed to potentially creeping up, especially as the market is in transition. Now, the next question people run into is the supply and demand, right? If you're a seller right now, what are the questions that are going to be going through your head?
If I'm a seller?
Yeah.
Honestly, not really quite sure. Probably what I would like the best. I would think the highest price I can get for my house, maybe.
Okay. That's absolutely. Every seller will want to do that. But take that to the next step. Once they sell their home, now what?
Their next possible home that they need to get, or project,
what are they going to
they're gonna need to buy.
get a good deal on that one?
Yeah.
So if you're going to sell high, you're going to try to find your next deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough sell. And just right off the top of your head, because you know you haven't had time to think about it, what would you tell your client? You know, let's say you're sitting down right now, and I just brought this to your attention, like, hey, you know, I love the fact we're going to be able to sell my 1,500 square foot house for, you know, 250 grand, but we're having a kid, so I'm going to need to buy my next house, which is even bigger, and I'm going to have to spend more on that house.
Yeah, most likely. I really wouldn't know what to say in that situation, to be honest with you. I would probably most likely be like, I would have to get back to you on that. I would have to, do some research.
catch.
Yeah. So I wouldn't really know what to say.
Try to try to think of something like, for example, what would be some of the things? Okay, yes, you would. There's
Yeah.
no getting around that
Yeah.
unless we can find that smoking good deal, which we're obviously going to try, right?
Mhm.
If we can, depending on the area they're wanting to go into, for example, when markets get high like this is why you see the outskirts starting to explode, because that's where you pick up the better deal,
Yeah.
right? Less price per square foot. So they might be able to get a bigger house for slightly less money.
Yeah.
That might be one option. As far as wanting to stay in this area, let's say they have a 1,500 square foot house
Mm-hmm.
and a 2,000 square foot house. Okay, all things being equal, they're both going to go up in price, right? Okay, is a 2,000 square foot house pretty much always going to be worth hopefully more than a 1,500 square foot house? All things being equal,
Yeah.
same neighborhood, same everything. It's just a bigger.
Because of the square footage.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's say you have $250,000 here,
Mm-hmm.
$300,000 here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this house goes up 10%. What's 10% of 250,000?
2,500?
25,000.
25,000?
Yeah. Okay, what's 10% of 300,000?
30,000?
So which one just made more money?
The
Same market, this one went up $5,000 more because it's a better starting point. It has more potential to rise. 20% of 300,000 is more than 10% of 250,000.
yeah.
So you're going to spend more here, but as the market goes up, is it going to
It's gonna be
appreciate
better.
proportionally?
Yeah, you're gonna have a better investment.
Yep. And you could also take it one step further. If you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, is that house kind of going to max out at a certain point, right? Whereas if you can find that perfect home, the 3 or 4-bedroom, 3-car garage with a pool, 2,000 square feet in a decent neighborhood, is that home going to pretty much always stay at wherever the peak is going to be?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what home is going to be a better investment? If you're going to go into this one, that's always going to be a better investment no matter what.
Yeah.
It's going to be more desirable when you go to sell it, everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So being able to communicate in those ways, right? Let's say you have going back to the interest rate, okay? Let's say they're gonna have just flat out 5% down or whatever it might be, right? So the down payment's not necessarily big, but let's say there's talk that the interest rates might go up at the end of the year, okay? Well, if they're gonna buy a $250,000 house or a $300,000 house over here, what would that interest rate potentially do for them? Okay, rather than we already got them past. Okay, well now's the time to hop. You know, it's not worth waiting for it to go back to 2 because that's crazy. It's probably who knows if or when.
Yeah.
The likelihood of it going up to 8 is what's more likely, right? So, what is the difference in a payment between a 5.15% interest rate and a 5.25% interest rate?
I'm sure it's quite a bit. I mean, I'm not really quite sure, but at least $100 difference.
It's not huge. It depends on the house. You know, let's pull this up here really quick. Okay. So, I wish I remembered these ratios right off the top of my head. Okay, so you got somebody who's putting 10% down on a $250,000 house. Okay, so let's say right off the bat it's a 5% interest rate. Okay, for 30 years. Okay, so the principal and interest payment on that one is $1,207.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now let's take it. Oh wait, it went to 4. It switched to 4 point something. What? Okay, what did I say? It was 1207.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at 5.15, that's 1,228.56.
Oh, so it's like
Okay, so hold on one second because I think it switched it before on me. Okay, so at 5%, let's do this again. Yeah, 1207.85 to 1220 what?
1228.
Okay, so that 1/10 of a difference made a $20 a month difference in payment.
Wow.
1/10, $20 a month, and that $20 a month over 30 years does add up.
Yeah, sure does.
Okay, so truly, is $20 a month going to make or break most people? Not unless you're already at the outskirts,
Yeah.
right? But on the flip side, can you kind of take that one either direction? Really, if you're dealing with a buyer who needs to go up, it's $20 more. Really, I gotta make a difference in your payment. If you need to spend it, go up more. But on the difference, if they're trying to buy a house and they're like, man, you know, I'm not sure we're ready to do this because of that. Well, you should do it now, because if this is going to be your forever home, that $20 a month is going to add up at the end of 30 years or 20 years, 15 years. So if they need to come up, man, $20 a month is really that much. But on the other hand, it's like, well, shoot, can you really afford to spend that $20? Depending on where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the tough part, because there's no right or wrong answer. The person's situation is going to dictate the right answer for that person. You may have somebody who has total cold feet for no reason, and you need to get them off the fence.
Yeah.
Or you might have somebody that truly, to be happy to get the home they want, it will only be $20 more a month.
Yeah.
To truly be happy. You know, the difference between I can settle for this and maybe be here for 4 or 5 years, or for $20 a month, I can have that extra home that can get me what I want, and I'll be happy for the next 10, 15 years. You know, that can make a huge difference, because to take it back the other way, okay, let's keep it at 5%, okay? So it was at 1227 was what it went to at 5.15. So let's switch it to 260,000. Okay. So yeah, that it's an extra about 5. Mortgages are interesting. This is why we need to bring in a lender to actually give the details, because, you know, if you're dealing with a 5.15 interest rate and a 5.0 interest rate, you know, that's difference in buying power. On the flip side, you're dealing with an interest rate going up that's going to impede your buying power.
Okay.
Right? So you could either buy more for the same amount, or you can buy the same amount for less money. Right? Do I want to spend $250,000 and try to get more square feet, or do I want to spend $240,000 and try to get that same amount of square feet? You know, it's kind of like in monthly payments. You kind of line them all up. So without knowing the full details of it, it's really hard to get into the nitty-gritty of each situation. But basically, to be able to use the market to your advantage, you have to know the market. To know that we've now entered basically the 3rd month straight means that it's happening. Okay, and we're one of the first people to know this. And I had 2 videos that kind of line this up.
Okay.
Where really good videos about how agents can legitimately use it and actually call your clients right now. Okay, let's say you had a client who bought their house 5 years ago. Okay, the market's gone up, interest rates have gone up, they're forecasting that it's going to go down. Okay, so would it behoove them to probably sell their house maybe right now? It might have peaked. Okay, let's say you have somebody who is relocating and they're not sure if they should keep their house for another year or 2, or if they should rent it out. Okay, well, rental market's on fire.
Yeah.
Home values might be going down. That's a good judgment call. You might need to talk to them about it, because they might get the rents now, but the home may or may not be worth the same amount next year.
Yeah.
But the market's never been higher for rents. See,
That's
these
a
are
predicament.
these are the things we have to talk about, people, and really expand their minds, because if he was looking to sell, that might be great. But what if he can make $2,000 a month for 12 months and then turn around and sell for remotely close? But without knowing the numbers and what's going on, it's hard to make those decisions. All we can do is make it based on today.
Yeah.
Based on today, I would say if it's a $250,000 home, I don't think it's going to drop that much. I would actually try to rent it out if possible. If I paid cash for it and I could. But if it were me looking to buy another home right now, I would be jumping because you can find a good deal out there. The market does not have enough homes and interest rates are going to be on the rise. I really, really think that if you're contemplating making a sale, especially if you're looking at like downsizing, I think right now is one of the best times to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to sell great, try to find just a good deal on a good house and hold tight and either invest the rest or do something with the difference. I think personally that's what I would do. But I'm not on that market right now. I'm more on the investment side, which the investment side is a lot weirder because home values are up, interest rates have gone up, which makes it, the impact of the interest rates going up makes it harder to find that good house to finance. You know, multi-units you can make work and commercial properties you can make work, but when it comes to single family homes, it's a lot harder to make that work when prices and interest rates have gone up so significantly. And that's why a lot of these people have gone to the commercial side.
I'm going to imagine that even though the market crashes, not like crashes, but drops, the commercial side still stays up.
The commercial, it's almost like the opposite. Like right now when the market's so strong over here, the commercial side is where you can find a better deal and flip-flop. I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
I wish I had more experience 10 years ago. Because then I would be able to correlate it. Like if I had gotten in 1998 and been able to watch it between 98 and 2008.
Yeah. See what happened 10 years then.
Man, I would
And then
have
you can kind of judge it, what's going to happen now.
Yeah, because I could have seen the fall, the rise, the fall, the rise, and really be able to correlate the two. I've only been on the commercial side for about 4 years now, 3 years now, 3 or 4 years. So I don't have the history on that commercial side. I wish. And so, okay, so be prepared. Be ready to communicate with your clients. I'll send out these videos from the National Real Estate Post. There's another one from a different group as well, and they're talking about how one's a lender and then one's the National Real Estate Post, which they're lenders, but they talk about both sides, and they really talk about how to sell your clients specifically. So I'll send that out to everybody via email, and if anybody else wants it that might be watching this, just message me. I'll send those videos out too. Okay, so that was gonna segue into the best practices, because in a hard market, when people, let's say last month there were 8,500 sales, this month there were 6,900 sales. That literally means 1,600 people less bought homes.
Yeah.
Okay, which means what for agents?
Less sales.
Less to go around, which means you have to be on your game to keep your market share and potentially grow it.
Yeah.
And when a market goes in flux, that's when things change. That's when you have to have your systems in place, because it's going to thin out the herd. People are going to quit because they actually have to work. And the people who stay and have the great systems and know what to do are going to not only survive, but they're actually going to get a raise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing more.
So the next video I was going to show had somebody calling agents. Ah, are you back? Cool. I was having a hard time tying something in, so maybe you can clarify it. So let's go back really quick. When it comes to, let's say you have a client, right? We got them through the interest rate thing. Okay, historically speaking, I know it seems on the surface 4.75 sucks, but it's way better than 8, and the likelihood of it going down to 2 is way less likely than it is of it going back up to 8. So, let's move forward. Wonderful. Okay, now you've gotten them to either selling or buying. Okay? So, for a seller, in this market, you've got goods and bads. And this is where you have to frame it nicely for them to be able to feel comfortable. Prices, interest rates, buying a new home. How would you pretend Jacob here has a home he wants to sell? And downsizing is easy, okay? But let's say Jacob is having a kid with his wife and they need to go from their little 2-bedroom home to a 3-bedroom home in this market. Okay? How would you frame that and tell him that it is a good deal? This is a good move at this point in time.
Well, I guess I'd wanna find out when he bought the home that he's getting out of. And, because,
So let's make it good. 2000. Let's say he bought in 2011. Let's make it good.
to 2011.
Yeah, he's going to
then-
cash out nicely.
Then the cash out would be great, and the interest rate was much lower then.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna wanna move into something bigger. Depending on where his home is that he's selling versus where he wants to buy, will make the difference as to bigger and whether they're gonna need to finance more. Or, and then there are a lot of options with that. Sometimes you can move into something that needs a little bit of work and, enough to get it financed okay, but still end up with a lot of extra space.
And what would be a benefit of that, potentially?
They would create a lot of equity, appreciated value by improving it themselves.
Yeah.
And they're doing a bigger home, which would make it that much.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is to just kind of reinforce that, you know, we're selling for this, and if it's in if where we're selling at is in a similar location as far as quality of home, that he might be getting top dollar here for the price, for what he's selling, but it's not going to equate to the ability to buy any much more over here, because it's, the per square foot is probably gonna be very similar. So they just need to be prepared to either, do some, labor potentially and create an ability to go in with not much extra expense, or be prepared for a smaller loan. A loan, they just put all their equity into the new purchase, and then emphasize that the interest rate that they had before it's not there right now, and it probably will not come back in our lifetime, because even at 4% or 5%, in the Great Depression, it was 15%. You know, and at 4 or 5%, that's still the lowest that we've had in generations, other than, you know, the 0
Yeah.
or 1%.
Yeah.
5% is still great. So I think I would frame it that way, that there are ways that they can get into bigger property without a lot of extra expense right off the bat, assuming that you can find them a financeable
Yeah.
property,
Yeah.
or prepare them just to have a payment for the difference.
Yeah, if they could find a good property, you know, 10-20% below market value that they could come in and put some into, and then as hopefully putting it into a bigger, better home within reason, is gonna have that same 10%, 20%. If we continue going up, it's gonna be that much better. And if they could actually refi, and the other benefit too about that is if they can get a good enough deal and prove it enough, they can turn around and get rid of PMI, which might actually save them some money.
They can.
If it appraises, there you go. So, the beauty is it's just compared to the loan amount. So the day it appraises for 20% basically more than what they owe, they get rid of PMI.
And today, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of payment.
Yeah. So that'll be huge. And as opposed to the FHA loan where they're stuck with that insurance the entire time, no matter what, too. So, that's another one. The conventional loans have actually stepped up hugely The other guy was saying what 3% now is a conventional loan 3% down.
Yeah, yeah.
So they actually have one that beats FHA now. So
So I would imagine then conventional is a little better.
it can be depending.
It just depends on the client.
Yeah, if they have a strong enough credit rate and quality or power of being able to purchase, it definitely would be.
Okay.
The reason FHA most people can do it is because as opposed to where conventional loan, a 680 credit score can technically go against you a little bit as opposed to a 720, or your debt to income ratio might be a little bit off. Literally, if you just hit this, and this, you get your FHA loan. And it doesn't matter if you qualified by this much or if you qualified by that much.
Oh, okay.
It's all the same. So, yeah.
I think the other thing to keep in mind with somebody selling and buying another home is if there's any question at all, not only the lower interest rate historically, I mean, it's more than what it has been, but it is still lower than several generations at 4 or 5%. The other way of looking at it is that what percentage of your income did you pay for this house? And hopefully they've grown in their career and they're making more now, and you could help them understand, okay, if you put 25% of your income towards your house payment here, and you've had a reasonable increase, or you're making more now, and they want to buy something that is more valuable than over here, and it might only be 20% of their income in ratio to what they used to be. So a bigger debt might be in ratio smaller.
True. Yeah.
And based on their income.
Yeah. As the husband and wife or whoever it might be progress, they hopefully, yeah. Yeah. And as long as we're talking, and this is the big caveat I just want to make sure we're putting in, that people have to be buying their homes for the right reasons.
Yeah.
If you're taking out an interest-only loan, you are buying your home for the wrong reason. If you're an investor buying an investment home on purpose and know what you're doing, that's a different ballgame. But if we're talking primary residence, conventional loans, people buying their home to keep it, ideally. Yeah, this has nothing to do. Do not buy it on an interest-only loan, anticipating the world is going to go perfect for the next 5 years. Never do that. Okay, so let's take that to now the other side, where there's only one other angle that we really have to acknowledge, because the market is hopping. We still have not nearly enough homes on the market. Let's even use this number that is 1,000 less than last month's number, right? 7,000. What's a normal market? 3 month supply or so, right? That would be 21,000 homes. Okay, so right now, if we're looking at 18,000 homes, that's still well below. It's about a little over 2.5 months supply. Okay, so what's that?
Like 4,000 of it's UCVs, or at least like 5.
Yeah, it was like 18. It was, I forget what the two were added up, but yeah. When you subtracted them, it took it from what would be a good solid almost 3 months to barely a little over, that 2 month
So
mark.
the 18 is minus all of the UCBs.
When you look at the stat, they keep them in there, but they associate them their percentage, but they keep them in that active classification. I don't like them being there because they're not. The owner might in their mind say, I'm keeping it on the market, but can they literally just accept another offer?
No.
No. It's contingent upon something else, but it's still under contract.
Yeah.
It's pending, right? So I think it was 11% and like 18%, something like that. It might not have been that high. It might have been like 7%, 11%. I really don't remember the numbers, but it took away a good couple thousand easy. Let's just say that.
Okay.
So in a market such as this, right, is there a benefit to communicating to your client the seller's market aspect? But when you bring up the seller's market, when they have to sell their home, that's the other big objection agents are running into. Yes, I get to cash out my house. Wonderful, great time to sell. But what do? Right? So the seller's market is wonderful, but it's also a tougher sale for anybody buying because there's not much supply.
Yeah.
Well, it only becomes beneficial if they don't need another house. Then they can cash out, and it's wonderful.
Let's just travel the world for the next 5 years.
Whatever, but if you're gonna want to live anywhere in another home and buy a home, you may want to really rethink that, not, because it's gonna cost them to buy. And unless they just want to pocket the money and do a 97% loan, you know. We had that, a CEU class here a couple of weeks ago, and the educator was saying that in regards to these stats that you're mentioning, the problem that we're having is that the bulk buyers are coming in and buying the affordable houses, and it's leaving a heavy influx on the more luxury
Yep.
side. So there are fewer homes.
Good deals for people that
That's
are in
right,
need.
for the average person to buy under 300,000.
You're raising the bar for the first-time home buyer higher and higher and higher.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And they're buying, a lot of them are buying them virtually, not really, but virtually sight unseen.
Oh, yeah?
Because the $1 billion buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just buying some.
Those have an agent send me anything that's 1,500 square feet under 200,000. Okay.
Mhm. That's it.
Yeah.
And
So
they're letting them sit.
Oh, that depreciates too, huh?
They let them sit, they let the market do its thing, and they're not even worried about putting renters in a lot of them right now. They're just letting it sit. I don't know.
the appreciation's doing the work for
That's
them
it.
at the moment. Yeah. So okay. So to bring this back, you have a buyer on the fence.
for Karen? Yeah, that'd be good.
You have a buyer on the fence. Okay, well, seller. Okay. They want to sell their home. They're worried about what to do. You got them over the hump, like, okay, I can live with a 5% interest rate because I understand at the end of the year this is going to be bad. Well, it could be worse, right? And it's not the end of the world if it goes down because we could refi. All good. Okay, but we need to find our new home. Okay, and this is what I've encountered a bunch over the last couple of weeks, especially. They need to sell their home to buy a new home. Do you list today and hope that they find a home if it goes under contract? Do you wait for them to find their perfect home and then list their home? And on top of that, getting them to really be excited about that new home. Because if they're downsizing, they're having, and these are all things that I wanted to talk about just to create objection handlers for us while we're talking to people. Downsizing for the same price. I've had a few people that have had big issues with that. I'm selling this house over here for $300,000, but I want to move over here, which is a better area with a smaller home, and I'm spending the same, if not more. That one's tough. That one I'm having a hard time with. The next one is if I want to downsize and actually cash out and buy another home, what's the best way to do this? Which is actually where to bring in the last part, reverse mortgages purchase has actually come in handy because it's taking out a huge thing and actually freeing up money. But I'm not advocating that, but that was an answer for one because when they cashed out their home, they only had $150,000 cash to buy their next one. What will that buy somebody right now?
Nothing. Well, it'll buy you something, but nothing good.
Nothing you're gonna do.
To have additional income
Yeah.
would qualify them better sometimes.
They could take that same, instead of spending the $90,000 that they really wanted to spend truly, they could actually spend $60,000 and that was enough equity to get them a $230,000 home and not have a home payment.
And that's with the reverse mortgage?
That's with the reverse mortgage purchase.
If you're dealing with close to retirement, I think it's 55 or 57.
Oh, so there's a certain age limit
For a reverse mortgage, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're all pretty much insured now, so that
Yeah.
they could have and they have contract. You can always look at the contract and we'll say X number of years, this amount, X number of years, this amount. And the bank will look at it, or the mortgage company, as verification of income.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and come up with a few answers for the agents when it comes to what would be a benefit for somebody to downsize in today's market. knowing that they might not, I mean, you're gonna find the deal, they might cash out, but what would you tell somebody that you're sitting at the table and it's a retired couple, right? And they're wanting to sell their big home to move to a quieter neighborhood and downsize. Okay? So run with that situation, knowing that my concern is, man, but we're not saving that much money, you know?
But the new location in 15 years might be better quality neighborhood, with maybe some of the amenities that they like, versus the one that they're leaving that might be aging and without the amenities, or perhaps even the values aren't being maintained as this new community. You know, a good example is that 20 years ago, where we lived over just south of Peoria, that was a growing neighborhood. The houses were only about 10 years old. Today, the appreciated value is growing minimally, whereas the same square footage over here is $50,000 more, and the appreciation is growing rapidly. So there's a value. They might want to downsize, but there could be value to it in my mind than doing it that way.
What is one benefit of an active adult community?
The population's always changing. Houses are gonna be for sale all
But they're
the
very
time.
less volatile though. They're much less volatile. So anybody who does invest in an active adult community, when the market fell, they fell very little if it was Pebble Creek, Sun City Grand, things like that. And when the market rebounded, they did appreciate, but it's much more stable. If it were me, active adult, and you were gonna invest in that one, because that's the beauty of a lot of these people are paying cash. So when the market falls, they may have to sell if it's an estate issue, but if it's not, are they gonna sell? Probably not. You know, and they'll just hold out for 300 days plus if that's what it means, you know? So, active adult community, it's an interesting, that's a whole good, different way to invest. But the appreciation, so you have the people that are looking at downsizing. What's another benefit too? A lot of them, if they're on a bigger piece of land, there's less maintenance, less work involved.
I was gonna say probably less electricity and water and
A newer home will
Yep.
have,
more efficient.
you know,
Yeah. So they may be spending more here, but let's say that house has the radiant barrier or solar, boom, you just save that much more money.
Yeah.
Easy. You know, that's a good example, Avenida del Sol. That water bill was $600, and then they reeled it in and got it taken care of, and it cut it in half. You're an efficient AC unit. What was your power bill or whatever that, who were we talking about? Got it fixed. Went from $500 to $200?
brand new air conditioner, about a year old, but not on a timer. And so we put a digital thermostat up and saved $200 a month.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Looking for different things that might be able to, and that's the benefit of a lot of, between 2007 and 2018, that was the big thing. Almost everybody has jumped on energy efficient, energy efficient, energy efficient. I think any home 2005 prior is probably how much less efficient than a home built in the last 10 years. You know, so, yeah, so that's another aspect. And it's funny because if they're downsizing to a better area, they're gonna reap the benefit of the better neighborhood and better appreciation, and then if they move to a bigger home in that same kind of idea, that's gonna have the better appreciation too, and it's gonna work both ways. The interest rate may still go up, so that's the benefit of doing it now, as far as either side. And then, trying to think of the top 3 objection handlers, because somebody downsizing, if you downsize in a growing area, it will be a much better investment 10 years from now. you're gonna reap the benefit of the better appreciation because of a growing area, better homes, better neighborhoods, better schools, whatever it might be. You're gonna spend less money on your utilities, etc. Okay, so those would be three great benefits of downsizing to, you know, by moving up in this market, you may be spending more money, but you're gonna put that in a bigger, better home that will take that same 10% and actually just make you that much more, so the depreciation factor. You might be moving to a better up-and-coming neighborhood that might have better schools, whatever, on that front. You might be saving money because of interest rates if they go up even more, who knows? I'm struggling to find that last really good one for the person needing to move and upsize right now. Because they want to take it and run with it, which is basically its own benefit. Take it and run with it in a better neighborhood with the best home you think is going to get the best whatever. That makes sense.
For people that are doing that, if they're using some of the things that you've mentioned, like a reverse mortgage, they're probably wanting to have a greater safety factor built into their home as well. The ability to get around, maybe buying something. The older homes have hallways, for example, that are not very wide. Today's hallways are at least usually about a foot wider than they were 30 years ago.
That's true.
And doorways, and
Functional utility as a whole.
that's right.
Okay. So let's leverage that to right before you came in, we were getting ready to jump topics, and this is kind of the finishing up topic. When you have a market like when we got into the business, okay, I didn't know how bad it was because I was just ignorant. I put my nose to the ground and did what I was told I was supposed to do. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Little did I know how many agents left, how many agents went broke, how many agents lost everything.
Well, a lot of agents because I got involved with the market about a year or so after you did. But so you and I were working the crash, and the prices went down to 25%, 30% of what they previously sold for. And so you have all of this trauma going on, the collapse of the real estate market, job loss, people getting stuck with pre-crash mortgages, with very little hope of anything happening. And so along the way comes a whole new generation of real estate professionals, and we're coming into that environment. We don't know anything any differently. Now, I knew that things were different because my wife and I, your mom and I, invested in real estate. So we began to see these things and wish that we had a lot of money to buy up a whole bunch of stuff. But that was the environment that we entered it, and then and it was good. It was a buyer's market, and they couldn't hardly sell these houses fast enough. I mean, I remember whenever there were 30,000 houses on the market.
68. I remember it was the highest. I remember seeing the number 68,000 something.
Yeah, and at the same time, realtors who had been around pre-crash and established, a lot of them developed bad attitudes because they wouldn't work for $60,000 a sale. They wouldn't work for $100,000, and so they kind of bailed and said, "I'm going to wait." Well, it finally got back up here maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
but
finally worth their while again.
Yeah, that was a long wait of maybe about 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those people that bought back then, they bought homes that were built in the 2000s or earlier, just barely in the 2000s. And then some of them waited around and bought half-finished homes to get them all finished because there were a lot of unfinished homes that developers just walked away from. But now we're dealing with that generation who's getting ready to sell again. And so they're going to walk away with a lot of equity, but at the same time, the prices have gone up, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it's not quite pre-crash, but it's pretty close. The benefit is that the interest rate is much lower compared to what it was then.
Wasn't it like 7?
It was 7, maybe even 8% sometimes.
Okay.
And that was for good credit.
Yeah.
And today, if you get involved with poor credit, and there are a lot of people, a lot of lenders that work with challenge credit, and they can get you in at 5.5 or 6%, which is still far less than what it was for the last couple of generations, with the exception of post-crash and the government regulating the financial industry, you know.
Yeah.
But will we ever see it in our generation go back? I would really doubt it. You buy and sell based on the here and now. You don't wait.
Yeah.
And you just make good decisions. You have a good, you work with a good realtor who has some good experience, and they can usually steer you into a good purchase in whatever way you want to handle it. If you want to do some improvements on it, you know, a good realtor will help you find that place that you can do that, make some money off of the appreciated value that you just received from selling your house, and get into a better house that will continue to build equity. But right now is a good time to buy, and it's still, the interest rate is still almost 2% or more lower than what it was pre-crash.
Yeah. So right now, when markets go in flux or markets crash, it really weeds out the realtors who are willing to do the extra work, make those extra connections, provide that extra service. You know, it's one thing to just have the market sell your home for you. It's another to have to go find that good fixer-upper. It's another to have to find, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're selling this big home. Let's find you the best deal on your downsize. Or, okay, yeah, you're blatantly working your way up. Let's find you the best home that's going to take you to where you want to be in your next phase, right? Or let's say, worst case scenario, we do see 4 or 5 months of this, and we see the selection of the supply of homes go, right? And then the sales still hover. People still buy and sell homes. People still have to move. People still make money during those times. Not everybody will. You figure, what did she say? There were 80,000 realtors, 58 approximately that are truly active. Last month, there were 7,000 homes that sold. What is that? Barely 10% of agents made a sale last month, right?
40 or 50,000 out of that, most of them are, their license are hanging, and they're an active license. I'm not saying that they're active doing anything.
Yep.
But people have this concept of being a realtor that, and they base that concept and expectation on what they see on TV, usually with the flippers, and how easily they make money supposedly. But in today's market, with the case scenario that you're using, where somebody wants to downsize and end up paying more for their downsize, it's going to take a realtor that has some good experience, has in listing and selling, has a good relationship with a group of lenders, and has learned from them, because they can go back. The realtor is going to process in his or her head the benefits of going from here to here, and they're going to want to protect the investment for these people. And so there's a lot that's going to be going on, so it's going to be really important to get with an experienced realtor if they're thinking about doing something like that.
An experienced, motivated, eager realtor. Right now, with the market where it's at, a group of lenders ran an experiment, let's just say. And they picked 10 agents, and they said, how many of them are going to answer their phone when we call?
Yeah.
All right, so when markets are strong, you know, we're less likely to provide that extra service. We're less likely to go after that speed to lead. We're less likely to do that extra follow-up, right? So they made 10 calls. How many agents picked up?
2.
That was what one of them said. They said 20% was one of the guesses, okay? One person gave as high as 6, but everybody else were like half, okay? and I wish I was able to play this video because 40% picked up. 40%. Okay. Now, in this market, people might survive picking up 40% of the time. But moving forward, if the market is headed in the direction that we think it is, where we might actually have to work for the next year or two, being there to pick up your phone, providing that extra service, having that extra market awareness, being able to find that niche, and really being there is going to make all the difference in the world. I couldn't believe that 40%. I'm not surprised, but I'm really, it hurts to hear it.
Those realtors who were around pre-crash, the housing market was in such a boom that the developers were building thousands of homes at a time. Individual developers, thousands, and if they were a smaller developer, hundreds they were building. And now many of these developers have merged and new ones have started up, and some of them have come back after being down for a while. And they're building 10, 20, maybe 100. If somebody's building 100 new units, that's big today compared to what it was. Pre-boom, the housing market was so strong that realtors used the phrase, "I'm just an order taker."
Yep.
They didn't work. And so whenever we went bust on the market and had to work and do far more for a fraction of what houses used to sell, that's why many of them just bombed out or said, "I'm not going to do it." But today, a realtor can make it if they want to work. And they have to, they're not going to be a specialist of everything, but they have to have the willingness to learn a lot, to put effort into it, spend time, and be a people person, and not, I mean, you don't have to be a social, I guess, butterfly. You just have to have a care for people to meet their needs and be willing to learn. Because today's realtor is a generalist in a lot of things, but specializes in one in particular.
Yep. So I was going to lead that, perfect segue, thank you, into some examples of agents providing that extra little bit to get that edge. To take this little thing that may or may not have been there before, but make sure it either A, turned into a good close sale, or B, turned into a sale that wasn't going to be there to begin with. So Randy, our old broker, very good example of great salesman, provides excellent service. So I'm not sure if it'll be able to hear this on the video, but I'm going to go ahead and see if it'll play, and you can hopefully pick up on the what he was saying.
Little update. I just took the listing of the past client referral, and also I had taken a listing that I knocked on the door of the next door neighbor. I introduced myself. They weren't home at the time. Left a lead behind, post little note card, business card. I left messages a couple of times. Finally, they called back and said, well, they weren't selling, had no intention of selling. And then just called me last week and said, hey, our brother passed away, and now we're in need of selling. So, prime example of spreading the word about your listing, getting out there, making it happen, and then opportunity knocks. When you knock.
So, I picked up on 3 great things from what he said.
Spreading out from your original point of contact, going to neighbors, calling, leaving your card, doing whatever else he did to maintain contact, and not giving up every time they said no.
Yeah. Follow up. Past clients.
Mm-hmm.
It was a past client that he'd been following up with that gave him the referral to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you've got the neighbor, which most agents would very rarely knock on a neighbor's door.
Mm-hmm.
So that extra service there. And then on top of that, he followed up several times to get the response to begin with. they didn't just say no up front. He followed up several times to get that no. And then after the no, he still got the yes later on. So, past client follow up, follow up, and then don't take no for an answer. You never know. That's a no for today. You know, and how many agents out of, you know, whatever do you think would have actually knocked on that neighbor's door? Well, let's take it to begin with. Okay, how many agents truly follow up with their past clients like we know we should?
Most of them don't.
Okay, so let's give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe 40% of agents follow
I'd
up
say
with past clients.
That's very high.
I would agree. Okay, and then of those agents, how many of them would give up after maybe 2 or 3 contacts on somebody who didn't respond?
Almost the rest of them.
Almost the rest of them. Okay, so then that being said, how many of them would have given up after that no in general?
The rest of them, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
So
one agent didn't, and he got the listing right there, you know.
yeah, and so he went through about 4 hurdles that didn't hurt him, he's not bloody and screaming, he doesn't have broken bones, he's not demoralized in any way. They said no, not today. He knocked on a door that was going to be there no matter what. And he literally created something out of nowhere that's going to provide a great value for people, and he's going to make a great living off of that deal. So, other than, what, time? Is there any other real sacrifice organization, you know, to actually do it?
Well, if you do nothing, you're not gonna make money. If you do something, you may not make money. So why not do something to create the possibilities of making a living or making some extra money? So if you sit around and don't follow up or don't do anything, you're not gonna make money. You're not gonna make a living. And so you might as well invest your time, and if nothing else, quite often, your investment will come back to repay you later. But if you do nothing today, you're gonna have nothing tomorrow. If you do something today, you might have something tomorrow.
And the beauty of real estate is it can be something huge tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another example of this was an agent who had something in escrow, and talk about making things happen. Okay, this guy's Carl Hawthorne. 2 weeks before my seller's home closes, we find out the house needs new field lines installed for the septic tank. Okay, how big of a thing is that?
About several $1,000s.
Okay. With my civil engineering and developer background, I knew how to expedite the process. I had my client schedule a small excavator to dig test pits due to rock. Then the soil scientist showed up a day early, and the excavator operator's not there. So once again, closing is in jeopardy until I got the excavator and got on the excavator and dug the test pits. I'm not your ordinary real estate agent. So basically, 2 weeks before closing, he found out that there's not necessarily the smallest septic tank issue. Jumped on it, scheduled everybody, but then people messed up their things, and so he made it happen. Getting excavators and people that do things of that nature out within a day or so, not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, not necessarily the most affordable thing in the world. And the fact that he actually knew enough to know about test pits and rock to begin with, I thought that was just really, really awesome.
Well, the thing about a real estate professional is that as they move into that career category, and as they gain more and more experience, a good realtor will begin to network and meet a lot of people related to home and home improvement, home repairs. And so a good experienced realtor, whenever you run across these kinds of situations, can often give you referrals based on his or her past experience with some of these service providers. And do it in such a way that there may or may not be, it may not require as much money to take care of those repairs, because they have their contacts that they've been working with sometimes for many, many years. So that's where we are generalists in one sense. I'm a realtor, and I have all of these people over here that I work with in service and repairs. And some of them are licensed contractors, some of them are handy people. But I can call on this whole group of people whenever I have a client that wants to sell or buy their home. If they want to sell it and we'd like to get top return off of it, we can send in some of our people for a few hundred to a few $1,000s and multiply that expense into a return, substantial. Then whenever we move over here, these same referrals are my pool of people that I've gotten to know over the last 10 years. We can assign them and appoint them to some kind of service or repair. And so a good realtor who has experience probably has a sphere of service providers that they can refer to, and that's what he did there. He either did it himself, or he had a group of people that not only did the work, but he was able to expedite the permit process.
Yeah. Yeah. So is buying a home stressful?
It can be.
Yeah. And is having a good experienced agent who can make that process not only as stress-free as possible, but even take certain things that might freak people out or take something in jeopardy and still get it done, and get it done in a way that's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know, oh, this came up, this is what we're going to do.
A good example is exactly what you used there on the septic system. Very few city homes have septics anymore. Those that did, some of them tapped into the sewer system and some of them didn't. We had one sale recently that had a septic system. To the average buyer, whenever there's a septic problem, they're going, oh no. Truthfully, it's not a huge problem. If you have a little bit of experience in it as the realtor, they have the ability to say, hey, listen, this is what's happening. And at the worst, it could be this, but we're thinking it's going to be this. Let me pull some of my friends in that I worked with before. Let's figure it out. And it could be a couple of $100s.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge thing. Even if they needed a new septic system, it's nice if you can share with your buyer or seller, this is what we're dealing with. And you calm their fears. And you give, and you also send a message to them that you have it under control. That you're working for them, and they can relax a little bit.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Perfect. Great tips. Great advice. Thanks guys for watching today. I'm so sorry we weren't able to go live on YouTube, etc., etc. Hopefully we'll figure out our technical issues here soon. If you guys have any questions or need anything, don't hesitate to give me a call or a text, and we're so happy to have Mike and Charlotte back. And you guys, let's rock the fourth quarter. I'll be giving everybody a call here between now and Thanksgiving to arrange to go over what your goals might be and everything to create your perfect business plan for 2019. So